guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber, and this is about a guy, young guy, or at least young in my opinion. He's 30 years old, and he shares his story about how he pretty much, instead of getting married, has chosen the single life thanks to all the knowledge that he's gained over the years in the Manosphere, getting crimson capsule, if you want to call it like that type of thing. And he shares his adventures he's gone through in terms of like this girlfriend he was serious with, and obviously had a lot of red flags about her, but he still had fun with her. But ultimately, instead of marriage, which a lot of guys end up choosing because they're fearful of losing the girl, they parted ways, and now he's enjoying the single life. And I'm going to share this to show you guys how the tide is starting to change, and more guys are realizing these things and going their own way, which is pretty cool, because this guy is saving himself a whole lot of problems and bullshit that could certainly arise given the odds are nowadays. So I'm going to jump right into the story. He says, "Hey SSM, I subscribed to you on Locals and made a comment asking how to submit personal stories. Thanks for the response." Yeah, guys, by the way, if you haven't heard already, I'm on Locals, and that is a private site that you can go to and become either a member or supporter, and that way then I can post comments in there, videos on there, and they're uncensored. I can say whatever I want, and if you're a member, you can go on there and join, and you can see a bunch of the things I do. And if you're a supporter, it's $5 a month, not that expensive at all, and you can then see exclusive videos, partake in conversations with other members, post things, chat with me. I always respond that day to people, and so forth. It's definitely worth it. And starting next week, I'm going to be having a lot more exclusive videos going forward, so just give it a shot. And by the way, you can also do a month for free, so I will have the link in the description below if you want to check that out. So anyhow, it goes on. "I'm not sure how to start this, so like any good story, I'll begin at the beginning. I was engaged to a South Korean girl that I did a long-distance relationship while I was in the Navy. It lasted 5 years. She was a quote-unquote good girl. Yeah, no such thing. But it's pretty hard to vet when you're 8,000 miles apart, only seeing each other a couple times a year. After regular arguments, I decided it was no bueno and ghosted her after 5 years and being engaged." Okay, that's your way of handling it. Ghosting her after 5 years being engaged. I guess you didn't get the ring back. "My story with her deserves its own email, but we've gotten the pertinent facts out of the way." Well, I'm glad you didn't go through that either. He says, "I broke up with her in May of 2015 after I got out of the Navy. I hooked up with a few chicks for regular for several months, telling them I wanted nothing serious. One even gave me what are we question, and she got sent back to the streets. In October 2015, I met my now former girlfriend on Plenty of Fish. She was a bit overweight, but I was just looking for some action, so I hit her up." Ah, so you like the big girls, eh? "She came over to my apartment on the first date." He said, red flag number 1. "We had a great conversation that I was enjoying, and she made the first move about if I was interested, I should light it up. Being confident myself, I took her to Pound Town. We had a great night, and she left the next morning, but we definitely had a connection." So she made the first move, and she came over to your place on the first date. Hey, you hooked up, and you had fun, so who cares? But this girl becomes his girlfriend for a long time, and there's definitely some issues you're about to see, guys. Ultimately, this guy will dodge a bullet. He says, "Over the next few months, we were hanging out and having you-know-what almost every day. When we first started off, I didn't see her as anything serious, and I wasn't looking for anything serious. It was just before Christmas, and we were sitting on my couch looking at each other. I asked her what she was thinking about, and she said that she loved me. I chuckled, thought for a second, and told her I loved her too. We agreed to be exclusive. I know it's blue pill, but I will remember that moment for the rest of my life." Hey, you were younger, and you know what? I mean, here's the deal, guys. This isn't the relationship channel, but I do tell guys, look, if you guys are relationship guys and you want to do that, okay. Just I have 2 things to say about that. Don't move in with them, and certainly in today's world, don't get married. How things are today in 2021, okay? If, however, you're going to get married for religion or society, whatever the reason you want to do it, then and then only would you move in with her just to see what she's actually like. And even then they can put on an act. But you want to do relationships? You do relationships. But be skeptical and don't rush into them. Just want to point that out here, guys. He says, "Going into February, one night I got a hair of my you-know-what while she was sleeping, and I went through her phone. Super messed up, I know. Well, what's the saying? Curiosity killed the cat. So I didn't find anything completely damning, but there were some text conversations with other guys where she alluded to being a super good baby, or some other guy saying she was a fine sex kitten, whatever the hell that is. Oh, so she's your girlfriend. She says that she loves you and all that, but meanwhile she has conversations going with other guys. See what I'm talking about? Guys, they always have orbiters. Women always have orbiters as backup, just in case things don't work out. And there's also the fact that she could be cheating. Something's up. He says, maybe I was relieved, like the simp I was, that I didn't find any damning evidence of cheating, but I didn't confront her until the next day after she left for home, and I called her and brought it up. She denied having knowledge of these conversations. Of course. We argued after a few hours, agreed to meet up at a truck stop in between where we both lived, and talked about it. I showed up, parked next to her, got in her car, and we talked. She offered me her phone to prove it wasn't there. And I was so beta and delusional that I started to question if somehow that my own eyes could be wrong. Well, she obviously deleted everything on the phone, dude. I'm sure you're aware of that. She had deleted the conversation I was talking about, and after not finding them, I asked her, do you expect me to believe that I'm seeing things or I'm crazy? To which she replied, I guess so. Any guy hearing this is going to rightly be punching me in the balls for being a simp, but this night was the beginning of my red pill journey. I didn't say a word, got out of the car, and drove away. So this moment really opened up your eyes about things. You were getting the whole BS thing that a lot of guys get. She denied the whole thing, lying through her teeth. Obviously behind the scenes she's talking to other dudes. Now, I don't know why you stayed with her at this point, but obviously you were a different guy back then. But guys, a situation like this, you're in a relationship and your girl's telling you she loves you, but meanwhile you find out one way or another she's out having conversations with other dudes, there's a lot of suspicious behavior, that's usually a time to start thinking about bailing. Because at the end of the day, if you do relationships, if you're into dating, there's plenty of options out there. But be aware for the red flags. You got to understand that. But right here, you see the twisting things around and all that, but he used this experience to help him go out and seek knowledge. And thank God for that, because now he ultimately, you obviously will see how this goes. He says, not to get too long in the tooth, we patched things up and I forgave her. Okay. I had recently had some experiences that made me question the validity of living life only to validate my ego. Let's call them mystical experiences spurred by fungus. Translation, he was having fun with certain substances. And so I took forgiving her as a life challenge. Not long later, I started probing her about her past. To her credit, she told me more than most women would. Now listen to this. She said she has slept with 70 men, and I doubt that number is real. Learning to perform mouth duties on a man servant, I'm not going to say what he wrote here, and her best you-know-what experience was when a guy put a device like this in the picture to her head. He says, kill me now, is it right? All that, but love is a hell of a drug. So she said that she slept with 70 dudes. You know, the old joke is when a guy tells you the amount of women he's hooked up with, whatever that number is divided by 3, because he's almost always full of shit. So if a guy says he's hooked up with 60 women, the odds are it's probably been 20. On the other hand, if a gal says that whatever she says, multiply times 3. So in this case here, she admitted to 70 dudes. It's probably more like over 200. I'm sure that definitely made him stay awake that night thinking about a few things. He says, we stayed together for 5.5 years. I can't believe you were with her that long. Yeah, I guess this guy obviously wasn't taking it too seriously. He was having a good time. Who the hell knows? But he was a different guy then. 5.5 years, and we would have a bad argument a couple times a year. It wasn't so much what she did, but just getting gut feelings that I couldn't trust her. Well, that's everything, man. Trust your gut. Look, if you're going to do relationships, and again, this is not the relationship channel, but I've been in enough of them to tell you, you're going to do relationships. If you can't trust the girl, then there's no point. None. That's when you walk away. End of story. You know, you obviously had no problem walking away from the first chick, the Korean girl that you were engaged to for 5 years. But you live and you learn. He says, over time, I had her pretty well trained. She contributed to about 15% of the monthly bills, was cooking here and there, and was finally being submissive. Well, if she's only contributing to 15% of the bills, in my opinion, that's not being very well trained. She ought to be contributing to 50% of the bills and doing more cooking than here and there. But you live and you learn. We got along really well, and she was a really sweet, thoughtful girl. She took a lot of initiative, do kind and tender things for me, and it helped that she could suck a mean one and would do whatever I asked, LOL. However, I could never forget her past. Yeah, 70 dudes she's claiming, and that's just in terms of hooking up and not just also fooling around, so to speak. And I'm sure his gut told him it was probably way more than 70 dudes. That's probably kind of normal nowadays, to be honest. Our last argument said she wanted to get married and have kids. Not necessarily with me, but in general. Well, of course, if this guy's 30 years old and she's probably, I'm assuming, around that age, what I've told you guys about women, when they get to be close to 30, they start getting really nervous because they don't want to be, God forbid, turning 30 and not being close to on their way to the altar. Therefore, then, they want to find a guy that can be a sure thing. And he said right here, she wanted to get married, and he said not necessarily with me, but in general. Right. Because women are so competitive with each other, and I guarantee you she probably had at least one family member, her mom, her grandma, her auntie. Aren't you going to get married? One of those deals. I'm glad he knew that. He says, I discovered the Manosphere in 2017 and started regularly consuming the Crimson capsules. I had told her I didn't want to get married as it posed too much risk to men many times. Dude, you obviously like this girl because you were with her 5.5 years, or she must have been really great in the sack, but obviously that took guts saying that. And it took you years of absorbing this material, learning about it, hearing plenty of horror stories, because that could have been you. So good for you, man. That takes balls. And a lot of guys wouldn't do that. A lot of guys they get serious about the girl, they're afraid of losing her, so they're going to be like, she'll be different. I'm not going to listen to those guys on YouTube. They don't know what they're talking about. My girl's different. And then they get married, and the same crap happens to them. And they're like, I wish I would have listened to that guy, SSM, or the other dudes on YouTube. Takes guts, man. Good for you for doing this. A lot of guys wouldn't do it, but honestly, more and more are actually as time is going on. So one video at a time, I'm trying to help different guys out around the world. He says, he had told me he didn't want to get married. And he says, we agreed to go our separate ways, and despite the many Crimson capsules, I found myself romanticizing our relationship. Don't get me wrong, we made an absolute ton of good and tender memories that I will take to the grave. Well, obviously, if you're with her for 5.5 years, you had fun with her. There's nothing wrong with that. And people tend to do that. Like, there's a breakup for whatever reason, and you part ways, and time goes by, and you move on, and then you start looking back at your old relationship that obviously was problematic, and then you're like, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. There was a few red flags with her, but by and large, she was fun. You start romanticizing it, just like he said. I've been there. I know what he's talking about. I'm sure many of you guys, whether you want to admit it or not, did the same thing. But ultimately, his initial decision was the right one. He says, I couldn't trust her, and don't get me wrong, if I ever found out she was cheating, I would have ejected her to the streets without any regret. Back to the fact that he couldn't trust her. That says everything. But there's still a part of me feeling nostalgic about those good times. It's nice to share your life with someone you at least believes loves you, but I couldn't abide the risk of marriage with a woman with such a past. I probably couldn't abide the risk of marriage in 2021 with a virgin either. Yeah, who knows? Even the ones that haven't hooked up yet. I do the stories about the ones that obviously have a past like her, and they can be pretty crazy, but then there's also the ones that they get hitched early on, and they actually didn't have any guys before, and after maybe a number of years being married, they start wondering what they were missing, and the next thing you know, cheating goes on, affairs and all that, so you're kind of screwed either way. The only way you cannot be screwed is basically you take the option of not getting married, okay? And just if you want to do relationships, then you do relationships, but you're not attached legally. And again, back to his nostalgia thing, like, yeah, of course. He was with her for a long time, he was having a good time, okay? But you want to do relationships, that's fine, but marriage, nah. He says, I realize I don't need to be making a woman the focus of my life. I'm 30 years old, have a house, truck, motorcycle, and a steady job that pays well. Awesome. And you know what? I'm willing to bet you this guy doesn't need a whole lot more to be happy. He has his own place, the truck, the motorcycle, steady job. I'm sure he's putting away money. There you go. Freedom. I don't know if I can give another woman a long-term relationship again, knowing what I know now. It's painful to deprogram from the blue pill fantasy that we're fed as kids. But I've always been a guy that prefers the truth no matter how painful it is. Yes. And the truth can definitely hurt, but the truth will set you free. Will set you free, but also piss you off too. But yeah, good for you, man. And once you start knowing this, that's what they call the red pill, like the thing from the Matrix. Once you took the red pill, you can see the world as it is. There's no going back. Well, I said the red pill. Let's see if YouTube flags this video. It's been a long day. I didn't get much sleep last night. I've been chugging coffee all day. He says, thanks for doing what you do, SSM. I'm giving up on alcohol and getting back to the gym and thinking about my purpose. I love woodworking and have made several cat trees. Even thought about starting up a custom cat tree business called the P Word on a Pedestal. I suspect I'd be making a killing with the way relationships are headed. Well, if you like doing that, do it. But I would not name your business that because you're not going to do very well, even though that's pretty funny. I wish you all the best, bro. Thank you for being a positive role model to men when society wants them helpless. Feel free to make a video out of my email, and in fact, I encourage it if you think it appropriate, as there may be many men listening that are on the edge of the crimson capsule, but are still being deluded by hormones and wishful thinking as I was. Cheers. Well, bro, thank you for writing that in. That was a good story. And again, to you guys watching this, it goes to show you that more and more guys are learning this material, and they're taking a good hard look at the situation and saying, given how things are in today's world, 2021, maybe this whole marriage thing is not going to work for me. I'm not going to be one of these guys in these stories I hear about that I read about online or in these articles or videos about. More and more guys are going to go down this path. And so good for you. And I wish you all the best. Focus on your purpose, your goals. Yes, hit the gym. Keep yourself in good shape. You don't need to look like a professional bodybuilder, but just take care of yourself. Do some cardio, do some lifting, eat well, minimize the alcohol. You said you're thinking about quitting alcohol. Yeah, go for it, But if you do enjoy a beer now and again, it's not going to kill you. And just focus on that, on your goals and ambitions, having a good time with your friends. And you obviously sound like a guy that's, likes to go out with women and have relationships. So if you want to do that, go right ahead, have a good time. But just be aware of the red flags. Don't let yourself get, completely like mesmerized and blinded because she's hot or because she's great in the sack or things like that. Always pay attention. And you'll be fine. So you're 30 years old. You got your whole life ahead of you, man. I wish you the best. So thanks for sending the email. It's really good one to hear. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.